Alright, let's go ahead and get this bad boy started. Let me go ahead, move us over to this screen. Hey everyone, Spidey Librarian here. Let me go ahead and shut down the music for the time being. And hey, welcome to tonight's live stream. This is going to be a fairly short and quick one. I don't see myself streaming for more than half an hour, but I did just get back from seeing Superman. 2025, James Gunn's Superman, the start of the current DC cinematic universe, and I have some things to say about it. First of all, I just want to say that if you have watched my if you've watched my Classics Revisited live stream of Superman the movie from 1978, I've always been more of a Marvel guy, all right? I'm wearing Spider-Man gloves. I'm wearing a Mysterio shirt. I've always been more of a Marvel guy, and I don't make any bones about that. And I'm definitely a Spider-Man guy. Marvel all the way, no problem there. However, when it comes to DC, I mean, while I prefer Marvel, there are definitely some DC heroes that I really like. Batman is definitely one of them. However, you could say that Superman was my first kind of like, in terms of movies at least, my first superhero love, because I was born shortly before Superman the movie came out in theaters, and that basically was the only superhero movie of its type for a very long time. And so, you can say that it's due to like, being raised with, those movies playing in the background of my life or whatever. But like the John Williams score from those movies is buried like deep within my psyche. It has a profound emotional impact on me. And for that reason, Superman is a very powerful figure to me personally. I definitely have my issues with the character narratively, but in the hands of a good writer, a good Superman story is a beautiful thing indeed. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I kind of want to say that I feel like we got one of those stories with this movie, and I want to talk a little bit about it, do a little bit of a movie review, and then, excuse me, if any of you guys are able to join me and want to ask questions about the movie, you can ask me anything. I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to tell you everything, because I kind of want to avoid spoilers. I don't really want to do any spoilers. I will talk about plot points that were mentioned in the marketing, things like that. But as to specific plot points that aren't covered in the marketing and that are just the purview of the film, I probably won't be saying much about those, because I want you guys to go in like I did and experience this for yourself, because really that's kind of the way that you should experience this story. You should not experience it secondhand. You should be watching this one and checking it out for yourself. So I highly recommend you do that. So as you can tell, my thoughts on this movie are gonna be pretty good, and I want to just kind of talk about how I felt sitting in the theater before the movie even began. Again, I've mentioned that the John Williams score has a very strong effect on me. Whenever I hear it playing, like a lot of feelings kind of well up from within me, and I start getting teary-eyed, even though I've heard the theme a million times. It's just one of those things that has a very kind of like basic level of effect on me, where I respond to it whether I want to or not. And so as the lights were going down and we were starting to get the first frames of the movie, I could feel myself fighting back tears already, simply because I have that strong an emotional, whether I want to or not, an emotional reaction to these stories, especially at the beginning. Um, they don't use the original John Williams theme. Okay, guess who's meowing at me, guys? Guess who's meowing at me? Hello, Trouble. How you doing, sweetie? I see you over there. I see you. Okay, apparently I need to feed my cat some treats before I can tell you guys much more. But just remember, I was talking about, you know, the feeling that I had as the movie was starting. We're gonna feed the little gremlin real quick, and then we'll get back into it. You are such a disruptive little thing. You know that, Trouble? Come here. Come on. No, no, no. Get up. Over here. Over here. Come on. All right. She gets 6 treats. Here we go. One, two, three. There you go. Okay. All right. Here's four. Would you please not bite my fingers? Five and six. All right. Go play. I love you. Typical cat, right? I'm just starting to get going, and then suddenly she's like, "Hey, you didn't feed me." Pain in the rear. I love her so much, though. All right. Anyways, um, anyways, basically, I had kind of an anticipatory sense of, I don't know. You can call it nostalgia, you can call it euphoria, you can call it whatever you want. But I was definitely just kind of having some feelings right before the movie started. And as it got underway, they weren't using the original John Williams score, which I actually think was a good move this time because we all know that score. That piece of music, it just is Superman. Um, I like that they didn't use it, but they definitely paid homage to it right from the get go. Like it's a kind of slower, a bit more kind of wistful rendition of the original John Williams soundtrack, which is much more like rousing and upbeat and everything. This was really good, and that was enough to pull me in without overwhelming me. And frankly, I'm kind of thankful to the filmmakers for not relying so strongly on all that nostalgia and everything. As much as I love the Superman origin story, as much as I love the original John Williams score, we really don't need those things to get started here. Um, Everyone knows who Superman is. Everyone knows what Superman does. Everyone has a pretty good idea of how Superman came to be. It's a very famous story. And so this movie makes what I consider to be a really good decision by just deciding, you know what, we're not going to do an origin story here. In fact, we've got what I like to think of as an extended stasis where they basically say kind of in the lead in they say that like 300 years ago this happened and da, 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 da. And we get an established kind of story that essentially tells you that we're doing things more or less in media res, where there are certain things that are just assumed to have happened. There are certain relationships that are just assumed to have already happened, and you're just kind of you come into it in the middle. And I know that can be a little off-putting for people who kind of like a proper beginning to their stories and everything, but I really feel like here the movie kind of succeeds in just taking kind of what we already know about the character from kind of a meta contextual point, and then just kind of relying on the audience, just like trusting the audience to kind of keep up. And I feel like it works. I feel like it works in telling a story of which Superman is definitely an integral part. But the movie isn't just about Superman. A lot of other DC characters are featured, and a lot of them are kind of given really big moments and everything alongside Superman. And I think that essentially we get a film that basically says, okay, we trust you guys to know enough about the character to kind of come along as we introduce these other elements and these other things that are going on. This is a story that does not take place over just a few days. This is a story that seems to span weeks or months, and metahumans are just a thing. They are just there. And so that's why we saw like Guy Gardner and Hawk Girl, and who else we saw. What's his name? Is it Metamorpho, I think? And Mr. Terrific, who I had no clue who Mr. Terrific was before I watched this movie. I had no clue. And by the time this movie was over, I think I might actually have a new favorite DC character, because Mr. Terrific, again, no spoilers, but I will say this. He gets to be kind of a badass during this movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. So, um, but yeah, we get a lot of emphasis on like other heroes that are just kind of they already exist in the DC universe. Like, it's just assumed that metahumans are around, and there are pre-existing relationships that they have with each other and everything, and it works really well, actually. Um, who was the actor that played Mr. Terrific? It was like Edie. Oh my God, I can't remember. Hold on, I'm going to. Mr. Terrific actor is Edie Gathegi. He was awesome. That's pretty much all I'm gonna say, is that that actor did a fantastic job, and I really was just very happy with his presence and his performance. Um, but I'm diving into characters and actors without talking about the title character, and I shouldn't do that, but it's me, so I'm going to do that. Um, let's talk a little bit about Superman and David Corenswet. Really, really enjoyed the portrayal of Superman here. I really feel like David Corenswet. I feel like Superman. I'm not saying that Superman isn't a complex part. What I am saying is that Superman has the potential to be a pretty easy part to play for an actor who might want to just phone it in. All right. And I say that, I'm not saying any of the previous Superman actors have done that. I'm not implying that at all. What I am saying is that, it would be easy to put on the tights, and if you've got the body type and you're willing to smile for the cameras and just kind of pose, like, that would be easy enough to do. What I really enjoy about many of the portrayals that I have seen of the Man of Steel is that we get actors who want to go beyond that. I think we've gotten that with all of the actors who have been cast as Superman. They realize it's more than just putting on the costume and being muscular and posing and filming action scenes. And really, I think that the through line throughout at least most of the Superman portrayals is that you have a character who wants he's a character who is kind, or at least wants to be kind, and to that end he is there to help. He is there to serve. He is the kind of person who inspires hope and who brings out hopefully the best in all of those around him, um and I feel like David Gordon Sweat does a really good job with that. His Superman is very much about, I I am here to save lives. I don't want to let people die if I've got the ability to prevent it from happening. And there's a piece of marketing that contains part of an interview that Lois gives to Clark, who she knows is Superman. So she's interviewing Superman, but she knows that it's Clark, and she's being her reporterly self. All right. Again, none of this is a spoiler because this was mentioned in some of the marketing. And there is a whole lot of conflict going on because, again, Lois is a reporter. She is trying to get to the why of what actions Superman has just performed. And it actually becomes pretty antagonistic, the interview. And so Superman at one point is just like, he gives off the "Jesus, why are you doing this" vibe. And it all comes out from there. He's just like, I saw the opportunity to save lives, to prevent people from dying or being killed, and I took that opportunity. And essentially, I don't give a damn about the politics about it. And while that's a great ideal to have, Lois Lane's character is like, yes, but are you thinking about the practicalities of what you're doing? Are you thinking about the politics at all? Because these things matter. And it's a really well done scene that I don't think I've ever seen Superman have to really contend with. And I like the way that they portrayed the kind of, like, I don't want to say the deconstruction, but really that kind of prodding, probing questioning that can get uncomfortable if you think about, just how I what the whole superhero idea is a bit of a fantasy, and when you start thinking of the realities behind that fantasy, it can get a little uncomfortable. And so I liked that. And I feel like this is a good segue to kind of talk a little bit about, what was her name? Rachel Brosnahan, playing Lois Lane. Um, she is she is in the movie, and I'm not going to say that she is not important, but she definitely doesn't. She has nowhere near as big a role as Superman, and I think you could argue that she doesn't have as big a role as some of the other heroes. Um, so she is really good at basically showing that she's a journalist. She likes to, this Lois likes to think of herself as kind of like, I'm punk rock, basically, and it's kind of cute. But a lot of, with that background, you get a lot of kind of built-in distrust of authority. A lot of, hey, I want to know, why this is happening, or why you did this. And it works, in terms of making her a believable journalist. It also it also plays well in terms of her relationship with Clark and with Superman, who, it's not as smooth as we may have seen in the comics in terms of how relationships tend to go. I mean, like, all of us who have been in relationships, we know that relationships are work. You do not put effort into them, they can kind of fall apart. And at their core, Lois and this Superman are very different people in some fairly fundamental ways. And I like the way that that tension not only informs like their relationship, but it also informs their approaches to dealing with specific problems in their way. Um, it's an interesting dynamic, and I think one of the nitpicks I could introduce to this movie, because again, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't have any real problems with it. I think that a little bit more emphasis on the Clark and Lois relationship would have been nice, and it would have been helpful. There is enough, but I feel like it's like just enough, and I really felt like I could have done with a little bit more. So, um, what else did we get from this? We had oh, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other guest stars. First of all, oh God, the actor's name, Luthor. Is it Nicholas Holt? Right? Is it? Yes, it's Nicholas Holt. Okay, sorry, I had to Google that for a second just to be absolutely certain. Nicholas Holt turns in a pretty damn good Luthor. He is very much the kind of Luthor that I would want to see in these types of movies. He is definitely villainous. You hate him almost from the get-go, but you also kind of see where he's coming from, even if you may not agree. Or maybe you do. I don't know. But he does a really good job. I mean, he displays the intelligence, he displays the ego, he displays the vanity, and really he displays a kind of self-awareness of it that you don't often get in a lot of villains. He has genuine beef with Superman, again, at least from his point of view. And to that end, he will do anything. He does not care what he has to do. He will do anything to eradicate Superman. And to that end, he does some things that, this movie gave me feelings in a lot of ways. Okay. Like in some ways it gave me good big feelings and made me almost cry. And then in other ways, it just made me go like, oh God, I want to take that person and just beat the crap out of them. Or I want to, beat up this entire room of people because I hate them so much. And, I mean, I feel like that's the mark of a good movie. You have likable characters and you have dislikable characters, and Luthor does a good job of being a villain in this one. Um, there are two other big villains in terms of just those that get screen time. There's like Luthor's engineer, a woman by the name of Angela. I don't know much about her. I don't know much about the actress playing her. Didn't, love to hate that character too. She's like, I guess, an engineer with a real chip on her shoulder with regard to Superman, aka, the alien. And because of that, she commits some actions that made me like, oh no, lady, oh no, you've crossed the moral, threshold. Like, what do they call it? The moral, I don't know, crossing the moral threshold. We'll just use that trope. And then there's Ultraman, I think is what Luthor called him, and he's like he's a masked figure that is basically able to keep Superman in check. And I don't want to say more than that. But yeah, worth keeping an eye on that character as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the heroes, because I liked the three members of the Justice Gang, and then there's another one that I want to talk about. Before we get to them, though, let's talk about the real hero. Let's talk about Crypto. Crypto is a good boy, but he is not a very good boy. And I say that because it's fun to say, and to some extent it's true. And yeah, he definitely has some pivotal moments in the narrative and during the action too. Hi. Hi, how are you? This is my Crypto right here. If I were Superman, this would be my Crypto kitty. Right? Hi, Trouble. How are you? You're so sweet. You're so sweet. Your dad loves you. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. Anyways, um I think she wants me to go to bed basically. Um but no, Crypto was fun. He has a lot of comedic moments and a couple of like he comes in clutch a couple of times. I think they use him really well, and I think they do a good job of kind of explaining one why he's there, and also kind of his status as you know uh, an animal that runs in circles with Superman, for instance. So also enjoyed the depictions of the Justice Gang. First of all, I know that for a long time Nathan Fillion has been waiting to get some kind of a superhero role in a Marvel or a DC movie. And I'll be perfectly honest. I wanted to see him like as Wonder Man. I thought that would have been the perfect cast for him. If you haven't seen Firefly, I suggest you watch it. It's really good, and he is the star. And it's an ensemble show, but like you see his chops. After it because of Firefly, he got Castle and other stuff. But I know him from Firefly, and I know he has wanted to play a superhero for a while. He finally gets his wish in playing Guy Gardner. I mean, he's been in some Marvel movies, but like he got to play Guy Gardner in Superman. And at this point in time, I'm just like, this is like the perfect role for Nathan Fillion, who does an excellent job of showing off how, kind of coarse and off-putting and really just how kind of, I don't know, selfish Guy Gardner can be, but at the same time, he's also brave and won't take guff from anyone. Once he's on your side, this is a dude that is going to fight for you, and he's going to do it with style, and that definitely comes through in some of the combat sequences. Really good casting choice, really good performance. Nathan Fillion is always a treat to watch. So, speaking of treats to watch, I know she didn't get that much to do, but Isabella Merced plays Hawk Girl. Again, she's only around in a couple of scenes and doesn't get a whole lot to do, but she does have one or two moments where it's like, ooh, nice character moment. Really enjoyed that. Um, and the only other film I think I've seen her in is Madam Web, but all I've got to say is that Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl, the few scenes she gets, she's pretty fierce or dismissive or whatever, Hawk Girl needs to be during that scene. But man, I like seeing her out of that costume. She is so much fun to look at. Got a little bit of a crush there. I wish she had been given more to do. Hopefully, if there's ever a Justice Gang movie or something, we'll get to see more from her. But in this one, she's more of a voice of sometimes dissent, sometimes assent. It just kind of depends. And then finally, we get Edie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. And I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. Going into this movie, I had no clue who Mr. Terrific was. Never heard of him. Didn't know a thing about the character. I'm just like, okay, all right, another DC Comics character that I don't know anything about. Sure, let's go ahead and check it out. Mr. Terrific may now be my favorite DC Comics character. Like, I was like, wow, badass. I don't even know what his full power sets are. I just know that he is really freaking smart. And let's just say that he is good. He is as good as Luthor in terms of taking that intellect and applying it. And again, I don't want to give away too much, but brains over brawn becomes a catchphrase. There's a reason that that's a catchphrase, and it works in this movie. So really good cast, really good choice there. Really, I can think of two other things that I want to talk about before we wind down for the evening here. But essentially, how to put this? The environment of the movie, and I'm talking the like narrative environment more than anything. Again, I mentioned before that this movie kind of starts in a big way, kind of in media res, like in the middle of it. There is stuff going on, and essentially, it does that for Superman, who appears to be in the middle of something when we join him. And then it does it in a bigger way with kind of the overall DC narrative within this kind of cinematic universe, where, it has essentially like the existence of metahumans is kind of a given. It's already been established. It has been established for a very long time. And essentially, we're asked to kind of just like go with it. And again, I really like that. I feel like because we are dealing with a universe that to some degree we're all familiar with, whether it's through Superman, whether it's through Batman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, whatever, the Justice League in general. There is a lot that I feel can kind of culturally be assumed. And so I like that there is not only a rise in scale in terms of in terms of the time that this story occurs over, but there's just so much else going on. There's one scene that involves a floating, glowing, like huge monster in the air, and that scene is like entirely in the background, like the entire time. It's like, yeah, that's happening out there, but it's just a thing that's going on. It's just kind of taken as a given, and in this kind of narrative environment, this is, it's not a big ask. And again, I know that some people who want kind of a traditional narrative may have issues with this. For me personally, I didn't. I was just like, cool, let's go, basically. We've seen so many origin stories. We've seen so many, like, I don't know, so many things. Like, I feel like some movies, like, some superhero movies, you get, for instance, like a trilogy at most of a given superhero or group. And it usually starts from the beginning and it builds on those recent events from the first movie. But there are so many superhero stories that can be told that take place later in a given hero or group's life. And some of those stories you just couldn't do. Like take Spider-Man. Okay, let's talk about Tom Holland here. He basically, they did his origin. They kind of backdoored the origin with No Way Home, essentially. And that was done in a trilogy. Okay, there are some really good Spider-Man stories that are told and that take place when he is older, like very much older than he is. There's rematches with some of his old foes that are really good. There are stories like Kraven's Last Hunt, which you can't tell that story with a new Spider-Man. You just can't. You need a Spider-Man who has been at it for a while in order for that story to really have any impact. And so I kind of like the idea that James Gunn and the powers that be that are running this DC universe, I feel like they've kind of keyed into that, and they're like, yeah, let's move the time scale along a little bit. Let's establish that we've already got things going on here, and let's tell some of those other stories. So it makes me pretty excited for what we may see, from the forthcoming DC film projects at this point. I'm really kind of looking forward to that. So I really like the decision that they made with this movie in terms of its kind of narrative time scaling, I guess is probably one way to put it. And I think it works, and I think it works for a lot of moviegoers, especially anyone who's read the comics. But again, even if you haven't, you know enough kind of culturally through cultural osmosis about these characters and these places. I feel like they can do that at least a little bit. So uh, that remains to be seen if it'll ultimately work out. I personally think it will, and I have kind of a lot of love for James Gunn as a storyteller, and think that he can sustain it. So we'll see. Finally, I would like to just kind of end off on how this movie just kind of made me feel. I mentioned earlier, like I talked about my feelings with regard to the John Williams score and the way that they kind of modified it. But this is a movie that really has made me like it made me feel things. There were times when I felt absolute rage at some of the characters' actions, particularly the villains. Okay, there were one or two times when I'm like, "Soups, you need to desist, boy." And then, but there are other times. There were one or two moments that actually brought me to tears in this movie. Like seriously, just silent crying. Like, oh my god, that's powerful. I'm not gonna say what they are because again, I want you guys to go and watch this and enjoy it and experience it fresh. Because my god, did I enjoy this movie? But there is, there again, there are, this is a movie, I guess, that really made me. Superman's trump card is that he is hope, and this is a movie that really made me feel hopeful in a time and place where I really need it. You know, um, and I feel like this does a good job of that. Um, it made me feel anger a lot of the times. And it made me just feel like this was just a really good kind of comic book movie. It really kind of leans into its origins. It pays homage to a lot of the like interconnectedness that tends to come with these shared universes and everything. And I think it works really well. I like the directorial kind of vision that James Gunn seems to be setting with this new universe that this movie has brought to us, and I think that it does a good job of introducing not just the Man of Steel, but also just like this universe. It's kind of stasis or metastasis or whatever you want to call it. Like things just they're not new. They're not, like one I don't know. They haven't said much about Wonder Woman so far, but like, it's just assumed that metahumans exist. And like they come and they go, and some are more powerful than others, but people just kind of go with it. And I don't know. I feel like that is a thing that Marvel didn't really do that. Like they kind of did it in a retconny kind of way, where like we had Iron Man in 2008, and like as far as audiences knew at that time, Iron Man was like the first superhero. Like, and then we went along. We had the Hulk, and then we saw Thor. We got Black Widow. We got War Machine. But like all of this was kind of happening for the first time, and a lot of this stuff cropped up. Then they did like Captain Marvel, and then Thor, of course, took place over thousands of years, but everything was happening kind of for the first time in a big way. James Gunn's not doing that here. He's like, no. We need to do something different with this, and I feel like this is an interesting and a good choice. I think it will work. I could end up being wrong, but I've never claimed to be a prophet anyways. So, but truthfully, Superman 2025, I've got to say I'm a Spider-Man guy all the way through. I mean, my name is Spidey Librarian, for God's sake. But like, here's my superhero confession, guys. Superman the movie was released not too long after I was born, and was for a very long time the only movie of its kind. It was really kind of the only superhero movie out there. So the John Williams score is just it is intertwined like with my DNA and my psyche. I get very emotional whenever I hear that score. So while I may be a Spider-Man guy through and through, I may love the Avengers and the X-Men more than I'm ever going to love the Justice League. But here's my confession, guys. Superman, just by dint of the media environment that I happened to grow up in when I was a teeny tiny kid, Superman, for better or worse, is probably my first superhero love. And again, by osmosis, but it counts. And really, I think my reaction to this movie comes down to that, that assertion right there. That Superman as a kid, I remember wanting to be Superman as a kid. I think I dressed up for him one Halloween when I was tiny. And, I wanted to be able to fly and have super strength, and I wanted to be able to save people. And this movie, I feel like it restores that sense of optimism and that sense of hope that I really do feel is Superman's trump card. And to that end, I think this movie is very successful. I definitely would not be averse to watching this one again. I might find some friends that haven't seen it and go, "Oh, you haven't seen it yet? You want to go back to the theater? Want to go back to the theater and watch it?" I've only done that for Spider-Man movies, guys. I mean, I saw the Spider-Man movies several times in the theaters. And I did it for Iron Man. Iron Man, I think I went and saw 6 times in the theater. I liked it that much. And this was this was a good one. This was a good one. I am really optimistic as to how DC is going to do based on this. I feel like it is just a good tone setter, and it makes me look forward to the other movies that are coming out, which I think at this point are Supergirl. I think is the next one. It'll be in June of next year. I think they're also making like a Clayface movie. And I don't know what the status is with Robert Pattinson's Batman, like if he's part of this universe or what. I understand they're doing another movie with him, though. So, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that's going to be an Elseworlds title. I'm not sure. But in any case, um, I like to review these movies on Letterboxd, and I think, at least preliminarily, my score for this one is a pretty solid 4 stars. There are one or two nitpicks that I have, but like I think we could have used a little bit more Lois, and and I think we definitely could have used a little bit more of Clark's parents. They were delightful. They were delightful. I really liked, especially Pa Kent. But yeah, like we get good action. We get a good kind of shared universe environment. There is a really, I don't want to say a good motivation for Luthor, but definitely an understandable one. And if you're a fan of Superman and that character at all, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, this was a good one, and I think I think the future looks promising for the new DC cinematic universe under James Gunn. And yeah, go see it. I think you'll enjoy it. I think if you like Superman, I think if you like superhero movies at all, definitely go see this. But don't go see it like I'm not saying that you're going to like it just if you like superhero movies. I feel like as a superhero movie, this one hits the high notes and it hits them well. So go see it. Highly recommended. And yeah, I think that's kind of all I've got to say here. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in chat, but I'm not seeing any right now. I'm going to do a quick check. I'm going to take a look at the poll, see what you guys said about who your favorite Superman is. I'm only able to put like 3 choices, and then I have to go with other. So if you wanted to put like George Reeves or, anyone else who is not listed here, I mean, please feel free to do that. Just say their name in chat. But YouTube's polls are not the greatest in the world. So, all right. So far, we've had a total of 7 votes. It looks like Henry Cavill has gotten 3, Christopher Reeve has gotten 2, and Brandon Routh has gotten 2 as well. So, and of course, I chose these. I didn't want to do David Corenswet because recency bias, I suppose. And then, so I just kind of, after Corenswet, I just went with the 3 most recent cinematic Supermen, and went that way. So, thank you guys for participating on the poll. And I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and call it for the night. So thanks to those of you who joined me and listened to me kind of review and react to a little bit of this film. I hope you go see it. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And if you do see it and you like it, feel free to sound off in the comments. Let me know your opinions. I'd love to hear them. I do ask that you keep the conversation respectful, but other than that, if you end up watching the movie and it's not for you, I have no problem with people saying that. Hey, this is not for me. I didn't care for it, Um, but yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to get going. Thanks again to everyone who joined me tonight. I appreciate it very much. Take care. This is Spidey Librarian, and until my next stream or upload, I'll be wishing you a good day. Bye.